In March of 2020, the world, and New York City especially, experienced a traumatic event, the COVID-19 pandemic. It was and continues to be an unprecedented experience and changed the way we go about our lives. This pandemic has had a major impact on the physical and economic health of Americans, as well as our social and emotional well-being. This pandemic specifically has had a major impact on the education system and perhaps has changed the way society approaches education indefinitely. This project serves to discuss the social and emotional impact that remote learning has had on teachers. The art of teaching is a challenging and arduous profession in the best of times. The restrictions, modifications, and personal strains that COVID has imposed upon the New York City school system has created an even more difficult situation. While some teachers are still instructing students in person, many are attempting a new form of instruction that is entirely virtual. In my school alone, at least half of the staff is teaching through Zoom, while alone in their classrooms.
There are definitely negative consequences to a remote education plan that have been adopted by many public schools. It is challenging for teachers to be alone all day in the classroom while trying to enhance reading, writing, and math skills of elementary students through a computer screen. Some teachers struggle with engaging with young students and helping them to focus and make strides for their academic progress. But on the other hand, some teachers have seen that certain students are able to focus on their educational content without being distracted or intimidated by their peers. In addition, some teachers have seen that they no longer have to deal with much behavioral issues that can prove to be an extreme burden during the school day. In this video, we will aim to show the different perspectives of teachers and how the changes in education due to the pandemic has affected them.
The biggest challenges as a staff, as a school staff, is that I feel like we've lost touch with one another. We aren't in person, so we don't get to have conversations about our own lives to build up that relationship, and also about our students and their needs and the progress that they're making or lack of progress and how to address that. We've always been a team, and we address students' needs, and we make sure that we have everything, we give our students everything that they need as a team, because one teacher can't do everything for a kid. And because we're not in person and we're all teaching on our own, we're not connected anymore, and we don't have those conversations. And so I don't know who's showing up in the classrooms and who's not showing up. I know who's showing up to my Zoom. I don't know who doesn't have a device. I don't know who needs food, who's struggling, who's, doesn't have internet. I don't know those things because I'm not privy to those conversations, and those are the things we would say when we would see each other once a week when they drop off their class. And so normally when we would have that check-in opportunity, it doesn't exist anymore now. And so we don't have staff meetings anymore in person to talk and chit chat about things. We used to have staff meetings every week, and now because of time constraints, they've given us one staff meeting a month, and that staff meeting is filled to the brim with other things that we're doing. We don't ever have a chance to talk as a staff and to debrief and ask questions about students or their families or how things are going. There are other types of differentiation where, like language, we would have a para who spoke Spanish. We're very fortunate at our school that the majority of our paras speak Spanish, and a lot of our students speak Spanish and only Spanish. And so that's gone. I don't speak Spanish. And so you can't have the para on Zoom translating everything I'm saying after every word that I say. So a lot of our kids who are coming in with no English skills, no English knowledge, they are lost in the sauce, and there is nothing I can do for them because I can't translate for them. And the para who would normally do that in the classroom, or a student, a lot of times we had students, we'd pair up a student who was fluent in Spanish and English, and they would translate for that. We had that in almost every class. That's non-existent. We can't do that anymore. And so simple instructions, it's so hard to differentiate. And then not to mention, like, how am I supposed to assess 70 kids at a time, whether or not they understand it, and then differentiate for the level of understanding that they have? In a classroom with 30 kids, easy as pie. I do that nonstop. And then we just revisit whatever we need to in the lesson. That is non-existent on Zoom. It is a kid unmuting to say something here or there, giving us thumbs up reactions and emojis on their screen, and typing something in the chat if they answer a question. But there's not the time nor the mental capacity to be able to address that kind of level of understanding. And so a lot of the differentiation that would have naturally happened in the teaching process in person is out the window. It's impossible on Zoom. It's just not, and with our schedules, there is no small group anything. In person, I could pull a kid out of recess for 5 minutes and give them a one-on-one tutorial section, tutorial lesson to catch them up so that they were at the level of the class and could learn with the class. Can't do that on Zoom. Their schedules are packed. My schedule is packed from the time I sit down at the computer to the time that I'm done, so that kind of differentiation is just, I don't even really think about it anymore because it's so overwhelmingly impossible on Zoom.
My name is Adina Caton, and I'm here to talk about the emotional challenges that I've been faced with since the pandemic started. I am currently 6 months pregnant, and I have COVID. I gave it to my son and to my husband, and it's been very challenging trying to teach and keep up with housework and schoolwork and my son's schoolwork, on top of health challenges that have come up since we got this virus. We hope that it'll be over soon.
Hi, my name is Christina and I teach second grade at St. Xavier, and this year I am teaching mostly in person. I have 12 kids in my classroom, and then we have 2 children that are learning remotely at home. So they are Zooming in during our lessons and working alongside the children that are in the classroom. So this year, I think one of the biggest challenges is supporting the children who are at home, and also just especially seeing how much of the work the children produce is truly their own, and how much, depending on how much support they're getting from their families who are helping them.
One of the biggest challenges with remote learning, with remote teaching, is that the students aren't physically in the classroom with us, and there are a lot of elements that we cannot control. Students at home have different resources available to them. Some have printers, others don't, and need the materials to be modified so that they can use them on their devices. Some of them have more support than others, which is also a big factor since they are so young and often need help navigating Google Classroom, Zoom, or even finding the page that we're working on in the books that they have in front of them. Trying to make sure that remote students feel part of a classroom community and are engaged in learning is much more difficult this year, while also juggling keeping the kids in person, safely spaced, and on task.
Researchers have looked into the effect that remote education has had on teachers. An article in the New York Times recorded various teachers' responses to remote education, and it is clear that there is a wide range of perspectives. For example, one teacher stated, "I believe that this distance learning has enhanced portions of my teaching. I am now allowed to utilize technology that perhaps I haven't had time to before. I've also noticed that my students who struggled academically in class are excelling online." In contrast, another teacher says, quote, "Teaching involves human connection, and I feel like that's been taken away from me." Clearly, this pandemic and the experience of teaching virtually has had different types of impacts, both positive and negative, on the well-being of educators. This pandemic will likely last for at least a few more months, and the remote learning strategies we have been implementing may extend beyond this pandemic. In order to make remote teaching a more positive experience, please explore our toolkit.